Hello and welcome to the Reflection Show with me, Martha and Spice. A lot of us want to get married. A lot of us sometimes are so filled with the butterflies and we are in love and we want to get married to that special someone. But sometimes just before we get married, we find out that we are not compatible in genotype and we have to part ways. It can be so heartbreaking. Today we want to look at sickle cell and why is it important for all of us to know our genotype even before we fall in love. Let's go for a break. When we are back, we delve into an amazing conversation. I am Martha Spice. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the show. Like I said earlier on, today we'll be having a conversation on sickle cell. I have been joined here by Dr. Norbert. I didn't get your surname. Skipo.
Yes.
Or Skipo.
Kipo.
Okay. So today we want to look at sickle cell. It has been a very, should I say, interesting topic for over the years because everybody either want to talk about it or they want to dodge it. Some people are even scared to go and check their sickle status. We want to have the perspective from the doctors. What is sickle cell all about?
Thank you very much, and felicitations to all the crew and your viewers all over the region and the country at large. Sickle cell has been in existence for about 110 years now.
Ooh.
Yes, but of late, like you rightly said, there has been an increased awareness on sickle cell because of the issues of wanting to prevent it and the struggle that these young children and also adults go through when they have sickle cell. So sickle cell is a genetic condition such that an individual has two abnormal hemoglobin genes.
Okay.
And this results in certain disease processes. So basically what happens is that we all have a genetic makeup. What we are today is because of the genetic makeup. The genetic makeup is like a plant from which we develop from. So if there's any mistake or any challenge or problem with that genetic makeup or that plant, that is how we manifest it physically. So also in sickle cell, there is a mistake, so to say, in a component of that genetic plant that has to do with our red blood cell.
Okay.
Not necessarily the blood group, but a certain component of the red blood cell, which we call hemoglobin.
Okay.
So each person inherits two. That's one from each parent. So one from the father, one from the mother.
Okay.
Now, if an individual has two of these abnormal genes, we have what we term as normal, which we all know as the A.
Okay.
And we have the abnormal ones, which are there. That's C, S, thalassemia, and the rest. So if an individual has just one of those abnormal ones, it doesn't make the person sickle cell.
Okay.
The person must have two of the
Abnormal ones.
of which one of them must be S.
Okay.
Yes. So the person must have S and maybe another S or S and C, S and whatever. Any other abnormal one. But if the person has C, S and A, which is a normal one, it doesn't make the person sickle cell disease. Again, I want to add this quickly that most of the time we confuse sickle cell disease with sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
They're actually different. So sickle cell disease is the general term for people who have two abnormal genes of one being S.
Okay.
But sickle cell anemia is specific when the person has S and S.
Oh.
Yes. So if the person has SC, that isn't sickle cell anemia. It's sickle cell disease. If the person has S beta thalassemia, that is sickle cell disease, not anemia. It becomes sickle cell anemia when the person has S and an
So
S.
AS is what? Sickle cell disease?
No, AS is not sickle cell disease because A is a normal gene.
Okay.
And before a person qualifies for sickle cell, then the person must have two abnormal genes. So that's S and any other abnormal gene.
Okay.
Once you have S and A, which is a normal gene, then it doesn't make you sickle cell positive.
Okay.
Then we can say you are a carrier or you have the traits.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Sometimes too, people mix our genotypes with our blood groups. So you ask someone to go and check their sickling status. So some people get confused. So sickling status, genotype, and blood group. Take us through the differences.
Okay. So genotype simply means the genetic plan I was talking about, that blueprint. That's what we call the genotype. What we exhibit is what we call the phenotype. So for example, if someone is tall, his genotype, that means the genes the person has is probably capital T, or maybe capital T, small t. That's the genotype. That we don't see until we do a genetic testing.
Okay.
What we see, what the person shows, that height we see is what we call the phenotype.
Okay.
So we have a genotype for every characteristic. We have our sex, our skin color, the shape of our ears, our eye color, whatever. There is a genotype to it. What we show is the phenotype. So if you see my ears, the shape of my ears today, that's the phenotype.
Okay.
But the coding to it, that blueprint is the genotype. So the same with blood group and sickling status. There is a genotype for it all.
Okay.
But then what we exhibit is the phenotype.
Okay.
So for blood group, on the blood cells, we have a particular protein called an antigen.
Okay.
And that is what gives us the blood groups.
Okay.
So someone could be blood group A, blood group O, blood group AB, blood group B, and so on and so forth. Again, this is inherited from both parents.
Okay.
So if someone inherits A from the father, A from the mother, obviously he's A. If he gets A from the father, B from the mother, he's AB.
Okay.
So on and so forth. So that's it for the blood group.
Okay.
This is quite different from the sickling status, because for sickling, it has to do with a specific gene on the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a part of the red blood cell, not the entire red blood cell.
Okay.
So blood group has to do with the protein on the red blood cell, but sickling status has to do with the gene on the hemoglobin, which is a part of the red blood cell.
Okay.
So the two are different. So to say the fact that you have blood group A does not necessarily mean that you have the genotype HbA for the sickling.
Okay.
That is different from the blood group. So regardless of your blood group, whether you are A, AB, B, O, that does not have any direct correlation with your sickling status, whether you are SS, SC, AS, or AA. That's quite different.
Okay. So when someone has AA, it means that they have the normal genes or something.
Yes, in terms of sickle cell.
Okay,
yes.
in terms of sickle cell.
You know the blood grouping too, we have letters.
Yes.
So don't confuse the blood
group letters.
Yes, with that of the sickling. They are two separate things we look at.
Okay.
Yes. So for the blood group, they are antigens, and we have also named them with letters. So we
okay.
Have A,
so let's go through the different types of blood groups. We have O minus, or so let's take them through.
So with the blood grouping, we have, like I said, they are antigens. In fact, there are many ways we do blood grouping.
Okay.
But the
common ones, yes.
Yes, it's the ABO system. So we have about 4 antigens. So
okay.
We have A, we have B, we have O, and we have the rhesus factor, which we some also call as D. That's what gives us the plus or minus.
Okay.
So, like I said, you inherit one from each parent. So A, B, O. The O's are the minor ones. In terms of genes, we usually have the dominant one and the recessive one. So the dominant one simply means that if the two are there, one will dominate the other. So for example, if a person inherits A from one parent, A from another parent, his blood group A, no argument about that.
Okay.
If he inherits A and O, O is dominant, A is dominant over O. So even though the person has AO, his blood group A.
Okay.
Because A is dominant over O.
Okay.
Likewise, B is also dominant over O. So if the person inherits B, his blood group B. If he inherits BO, his blood group B.
Okay.
If when it comes to A and B, neither of them is dominant over the other, we say they are co-dominant.
Okay.
So if he gets A and B, then his blood group AB.
AB. Okay.
But when there's OO, since they are both recessive, then the person is O.
But we have positive and negative. Okay.
So then that's when the rhesus, the antigen D comes in, which is also known as the rhesus factor.
Okay.
So that one, it can come in either of them. So if the person is A and has the rhesus factor, which is the D, then we say it's A plus.
It's okay.
If it doesn't have it, it's A minus.
Okay.
Likewise, B, and so it can apply to any of the blood groups.
Yeah,
so after we've done the
blood
ABO system, then we attach the rhesus system.
Okay.
So we can have an A plus, A minus, B plus in that order. So if you notice, back to the issue of genotype and phenotype, you see blood group A could, in terms of the genes, it could be, in terms of the proteins or the antigens, it could be AA or AO, but they all exhibit blood group A. So phenotypically, we have blood group A, but if you look behind at the blueprint, it could be AA,
Yeah.
AO, but then
Okay.
they all exhibit blood group A in
Okay.
that order. So that's
Okay.
it for the blood system. But I mean the blood grouping system. But when it comes to the
The genotype.
the genotype for the sickling status, then we consider
So,
different letters. Then we are doing A, S, C, D,
Okay.
E, in that order, K, B, and so on.
Okay, I want us to go and explain that as well. But globally, or let me say in Ghana or whatever, with the statistics that we have, how many people averagely have sickle cell disease?
When it comes to statistics in our part of the world, it's usually a challenge. Mainly because
You don't get the accuracy.
yes, mainly because lots of institutions do not keep the data, and again, our attitude towards health, sometimes we don't even report it at qualified health facilities. So there are people who may have sickle cell and we may not even know at the health center stage. So it's quite difficult to get the numbers. But globally, it has been shown that about 300,000 people are born with sickle cell.
Every year?
Yes, every year.
Ooh, 300,000.
300,000 people sickle cell every year. In Ghana, the statistics we have was done in Kumasi.
Okay.
And has shown that about 2% of children born in Ghana have sickle cell disease.
That's still a lot.
Yes, 2%. But when it comes to the traits, like I said, the traits is if the person has the S, one abnormal gene and a normal gene. So about 25% of the population have the traits.
Wow.
So if you have about 100 people, 25 people are carriers.
That's a lot.
You have to find out before you go into any committed relationship.
Like that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Now let's go and explain the AAAS and what. So if someone finds out that they are AA, what does it mean? If someone finds out they are AS, what does it mean? And we can look at all that and we can now come back to which one is compatible to the other in terms of childbirth or etc.
Okay. All right. So like I was saying earlier, we all have characteristics physically. All these emanate from the genotype, the blueprint. And this comes on from the formative stage of the person. You don't pick up sickle cell like the way you pick up malaria. You don't acquire it from your day-to-day activities. You were born with it. That's if someone has sickle cell. The person was born with it. And it came about from the formative stage. So the father sort of brings some genes. The mother brings some genes together. Then a character comes. There are very few characters that are just provided by only one parent, but that can be spoken about later. But most of the characters are brought about by combination of genes from the father and from the mother. That's why mostly they are in pairs. So you take one here, you take one there, and you put together, and that's what the child comes out with. Even our sex, that's how it appears. So with sickle cell, the HB gene, the father brings one, the mother brings one. Of course, they don't choose which one they are bringing. They produce eggs, they produce sperm, and whichever combines, it's random. Whichever does the fertilization, that's what the child comes with. So they don't choose. So depending on the gene the father brings and the one the mother brings, that's what the person is going to have.
Okay.
So if an individual is AA, it simply meant that the father brought an A, the mother brought an A, and that's why he's AA. If the person is AS, it meant one parent brought an A, the other parent brought an S, and the person is AS. So that is how come we get.
And if it's SS, it means one parent brought an S, the other parent brought an S.
Yes. So that's how it works. So the genotype of an individual is dependent on the random combination that happened with the father and the mother in terms of fertilization. So whichever one they present is what the individual is going to have. So we don't choose our genotypes. It's randomly occurs during the fertilization and the child development process.
So now it means that, so now let's come to which, let me say, who do I marry? So if I'm AA, who can I marry? So we've established that we have AA, we have AS, and we have SS. I think there's SC.
There's SC.
Yeah. Okay. But I think these are the 3 or 4 common ones. Yeah. So how does the mixture or whatever, the compatibility come in?
Okay. So like you rightly said, there are a number of them. So we have the A, we have the S, we have C, we have even D, E, thalassemia. But like the common ones are A, S, and C. Let's stick to that. A, S, C for the purpose of this discussion. So they can combine in any way. It can be AA, AS, SS, SC, AC, and that order. Like I said, because you don't know which one the parent is going to keep, you don't choose it. The person could give off an A, the person could give off the other one he has. So if it's an AC, he could give off an A, he could give off a C. Because you don't know this, we just have to keep it safe. Anyone who is AA is very fantastic.
Very fantastic.
You can go anywhere. What it simply means is that, like I said, for someone to be sickle cell, the person must have 2 abnormal genes.
Yeah.
AA are 2 normal.
Very normal.
So as long as, regardless of which one he gives, if he gives off the first A or the second A, it's still an A.
Yeah.
That means no matter the combination the other partner even brings, it will be A and something else.
Yeah.
At least A from one of the partners.
Yes.
And something else from the other. So if the other is also bringing an A, that's AA. If
yeah.
An S, AS, C, AC, regardless. So someone who has AA can
marry anybody.
Can mingle
yeah.
It becomes a challenge when there is one abnormal gene, at least one. Then it becomes a challenge. Then what that simply means is that anybody who has at least one abnormal gene, to keep it safe, you must find someone who has 2 normal genes. That's an AA.
So if you are AS, you must find someone who is AA.
Yes. Then you are sure that whether you are giving off the A
or the S,
the person will counter it with an A.
Yeah.
If you are SC or SS, whatever, as long as there's one abnormal
S,
gene, you have to find someone
with 2 abnormal genes, 2 normal genes.
Yes, so that regardless of whichever you present, the person can counter it with a normal gene, and then you can be sure that your child, worst case, would be a carrier, but would not have sickle cell disease. That's fine. And in terms of presentation, there isn't much of a difference between someone who is AA and someone who is AS.
Okay.
Neither of them is sickle cell disease, so they present normally, except there are some very minute details behind. Like this research has shown that people with AS tend to be more resistant to malaria, but that's
okay.
But in terms of every other thing, they present.
Don't worry, we can cure the malaria. Just let us have our kids healthy.
So yeah, that's about it. In terms of compatibility in marriage, it's usually nice to know what your partner has and what you have as well. Of course, you can't want to know what your partner has when
and you don't know. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. You are not really using that information for anything. So it's better to know what you have than strive to find out what your partner has. If there's an AA in either case, then that is fantastic. But if both of you don't have an AA, like neither of you has an AA, then you may have to return that relationship.
So if you are AS and your partner is AS, it's very dangerous because, like you said, you cannot know. It's possible that you can release an A and your partner release their A, so your child will be AA. And there's another possibility that you can release an A and your partner release an S. That will make the child have SS. AS.
Yes.
And there's another possibility, that's the dangerous one, where that you release an S and your partner release an S. Then your child is seriously sickle. Exactly. But because we cannot say, like you said, you cannot decide within you that this one that I'm going to do, no, A, come, you to A, come. That's why we're actually asking that couples do not get together when they are AS and their partner too is AS.
Rightly put. Exactly so.
Wow. Now let's look at the dangers of people. For AA, it's more than 100. Because if you're AA and your partner is AA, I remember there was this post on Facebook some years back, and there was this couple, and people were insulting them like in a funny way though. The man was AA and the woman was AA, and they were getting married. And people were like, they are wasting their genes. Instead of like one of them to go and marry an SS or an AS, how can 2 AAs want to marry? It was so funny. So what is the complication if an AS and an AS want to marry? Sometimes it's even an AS and SS that wants to marry. But before we delve into that, get your pens and your papers. I remember in my science class, we used to draw. You draw A, you draw AS, and you be crossing. If you have time, get a pen and a paper, let's do that crossing. And you get to know how to stay safe so that you don't fall in love, like I always say, and fall out of love later. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
My name is is Sule Barika. I'm from Yawako community. We came here for the Lead Decide program in collaboration with the Plan Ghana. As we came here, we learned a lot. We learned about self-determination.
My name is Mahma Dorita. I come from Guablaga. I came here for the Lead Decide program. And when I came here, I learned a lot of things. Things like I learned how to determine myself, know my weakness and strengths. And I really appreciate and say thank you to Matter Inspire Foundation.
My name is Faisal Faiza. I'm from Banu community. We came here to learn about self-determination and self-weakness.
And due to that, we learn about our strengths and weakness points, what we know, what we like, and what we dislike in order to help other people. So thank you, Matter Inspire Foundation.
Welcome back. We are still understanding what sickle cell is all about, and most especially for young people. I think the last 2 or 3 years, I've had about 7 people who had to break off their relationship because of this. They are about to get married. And you see, sometimes I feel like even Christians, we are better because before you start your counseling, it's mandated to have all these, your sickling status, HIV, even pregnancy tests and all of these things in the church. So you're able to check these things. But why wait till then? You can do your own background checks even before you get to the counseling stage. So, Doc, let's start with the AA and the staff and some of the dangers involved in having a child who is having sickle cell.
So, like we were explaining before the break, because of the random reassortment and combination during the fertilization process, and you can't tell which one you are giving off, you are better off not taking that risk. But in the event that that risk is taken, either through probably ignorance, not knowing which group you are or that of your partner, there's usually a chance that some of your offspring, maybe all, will have sickle cell. Depending on the genotype
that was released,
they will usually have certain percentages. So usually when it's AS and AS, 2 AS partners, there's usually a 25% chance that they will have a child with a sickle cell. 25% simply means 1 out of 4. So if you have 4 children, by statistics, at least 1.
And you can't say whether it's the firstborn or the secondborn or that. Oh my goodness!
And since it's even statistics, you can have 2 children and both of them will be sickle cell.
Wow!
Because it's just statistics; it's a prediction. Yes, that about 1/4, like I said, based on the combination. It could happen that all the time you're having the child is S that is coming, S that is coming. You have sickle cell throughout. So there's usually a chance that you can have.
Or there's even a chance, like you can be lucky, but it's not advisable where you are AS and your kids are AAAS. It's very...
Yes, it's there. Like I said, the statistics, there's a chance, but that is not something we would advise.
It's not worth the risk.
Yes, it's too big a risk to take. And the painful thing is that the parents don't suffer it. Well, you may suffer it emotionally, you may suffer it financially, but then the real sufferer is the offspring, the child.
And then they go through so much pain in their bones. They
sad.
Can't sleep.
It's sad. You have to see one for yourself.
Wow.
And you see the children suffering, and you know where the issue is coming from. Through no fault of theirs. It's either 2 parents who didn't check, or
they were in love. And I learned when the children are now suffering, they now keep blaming themselves. Then this one will be like, we should have listened, we shouldn't have married. And that's where the reality sets in. But before then, you know, you're in love and the butterflies are so strong in your stomach, in your heart and all of that. Now we see that it's not like, so why do we test? Like, why should we test sickle cell? We say that it's the genes or it's in blood, but we always recommended to test medically. What does the testing, I don't know how to put this, but how does the testing has a way of helping reduce anything?
So the testing first is for the individual to know his genotype. When you test, you know for yourself. when you also test, you are able to prevent the disease. Like I said, it's not a disease you acquire, it's a disease that comes from the formation, from the beginning of life. Let me put it that way, of the individual. So once you know your group, you are able to avoid coming into having a partner that will also puts both of you at a risk of having a child who would have sickle cell. So it's important to test, and also medically, it's good for the doctors to know, because, like I said, some status and some illnesses do not go together. For example, it's
And also medication. Sometimes if the
exactly
medications are.
it's
But we
routine.
hardly even check that as African. Just when they give you any medicine you take, they don't really ask you those things.
Well, we do. Probably, maybe your healthcare practitioners are probably not communicating right, but that's one of the
Okay.
common things we check for. In fact, it's routine practice that every pregnant woman checks her sickling status. So if a woman has given birth before and she did antenatal, her sickling status should be known. She may not know, but if she picks her book, it will be written there. It's part of the routine test we do for every pregnant woman that is doing antenatal in a qualified health setting.
So your sickling status is just to know whether you were a carrier.
Okay, so there are many tests, but the common ones in our setting are just two.
Okay.
The common ones. So we have what we call the sickling test. So sickling test, when you do the test, it shows positive or negative. It is positive when there is any unusual gene. So
that's the abnormal gene you mentioned
Yes.
before, if one of them is
Yes.
in there.
Yes. So if the person is even AS, it will show as positive
Okay.
because there's an S there. If the person is SS, it will show as positive because there's an S there. If the person is AA, it will show as
Negative.
So
Okay.
usually that is the first, should I say, screening test we do.
Okay.
So if it comes out negative, we know you are AA. We don't even bother going further to know, because we just know you are AA. But if we do the sickling test and it shows positive, now we don't know whether the person is a carrier as in AS or the person actually has the disease as in
SSS.
SC or SS. So then we go further to do another test, which is called HB electrophoresis.
Okay.
So that one actually gives us the specific genes that are there. It lets us know if this is actually an AS that showed positive, or this is an SS that showed positive, or this is an SC. So usually these are the common tests we do. What we do for the pregnant women most of the time is the sickling status.
Okay.
The sickling test, so it shows either positive or negative. So when it's positive, then there may be a need for further testing to know whether this is a carrier or this actually has sickle cell. But then once it's positive, it makes us alert that this baby coming could be sickle cell positive, because if the mother already has at least one S, because we may not know if it is an SS or an AS, but we know for sure that there's one S hiding in there, or we don't know the status of the father. Fathers don't do antenatal. So then we become alert that this child that is coming could be. So there's usually a need to test them after some time to be sure that, okay, this child doesn't have sickle cell, or he has, then we can start educating them on some of the triggers and giving them medications if there's a need to.
Okay. I want us to now look at some of the signs and symptoms of someone who has sickle cell. So if someone is AS, does some symptoms show? Or if someone is SS, what are the symptoms? For A, of course, you don't carry anything, so nothing really shows. So what are some of the signs and symptoms, the clear things you need to be alert that you are probably a carrier?
So for carrier status, there isn't much of a difference between carrier and the AA. There isn't much of a difference. They are fairly the same. We are fairly the same. We may not know ourselves. That's why we do the testing.
Okay.
We may not know the difference. We just go about life usually, normally, and everything. AA, AS, everything fine. It's the SS people who manifest the symptoms.
Okay.
That is why it's a disease. So what happens in sickle cell? Like the name actually gives so much information about how the disease works.
Cells.
Sickle cell. The cell is sickled in shape. So our regular blood cells, or the normal blood cell, is usually biconcave. Biconcave simply means that it's round and there's an indentation at two ends. It's also very flexible, such that it can go through our blood vessels. No matter how tiny the blood vessels are, they can find a way around it. Unfortunately, in sickle cell, the cells assume a sickle shape. Sickle is that instrument we used to harvest rice. If you've seen it, has some C shape, or say a moon that is about 1 week old. It's sort of
yeah.
Now it's rigid. It doesn't carry enough oxygen, and because of how rigid it is, if the blood vessel is small, it goes in there and it locks. It can't come out. So it occludes the blood vessel. Now, our blood carries oxygen, carries food, nutrients, and everything that we need to all the parts of the body. Now, anytime there's an occlusion or there's a block in the blood vessel, that part that would have been supplied by that blood vessel begins to die. So it doesn't get the necessary oxygen, the necessary food, it begins to die. And that's what manifests as the pain. So that's the commonest crisis they have. It's called vaso-occlusive crisis. Vaso simply means blood vessel.
Be calming down.
So vaso-occlusive crisis simply means vessel occlusion is block crisis. So their blood vessel is blocked. And since the blood vessel gets blocked, any part that was supposed to receive the oxygen and nutrients, that it doesn't get it, and then it begins to die off. That death process results in the pain. So mostly they are in severe pain, very serious pain. It's the common sites are the chest, the long bones. The long bones. That's why they usually say they have bone pain. Sometimes the abdomen and also the back. So they have a lot of severe
pain
because of that crisis. Again, they have what we call anemia. Anemia simply means
the blood
hemoglobin levels. Hemoglobin, like there's a component of our blood that makes it red. So those levels are low, and that is the part that carries the oxygen. So when it is low, it means you have less oxygen within the parts of your body. It comes about as a result of, because they are sickling shaped and they go and get blocked, they easily break down. The normal lifespan or the lifespan of a normal red blood cell is about 90 days, 3 months. Unfortunately, for sickle shaped cells, it's usually about 20 days. Sometimes as low as 10 days. So their red blood cells are breaking down faster than usual. So they usually have a low HB level. So the normal HB level for males is usually about 13 to 16. For females is about 12 to 16 thereabouts. But for people with sickle cell, they are usually hovering around 10, 9, 8. Some even stay at 7. Yes. So it's usually low for them. Some can go as low as 5 or 4 if there's no intervention for them. So mostly they have a low HB. Because the red blood cells are breaking actively, the body has to remove it. And it can, that breakage in the blood, it breaks off and releases, should I say, some substances in the blood. And that is what we can see as jaundice, yellowing of the eyes. So people with sickle cell or people with severe breakdown of cells,
high risk of that.
they can have jaundice, so they can have yellowing of their eyes. Their urine could also be dark colored. Sometimes we say Coca-Cola colored urine because of active breakdown of the cells. It breaks down too much. That is the liver that removes those chemicals.
All this happens to one person.
All this happens to one person. That is why it's very important to prevent. It's very important to prevent. So they could have dark colored urine as well. And all the other symptoms of anemia, they easily get tired.
I think when you mentioned the bones, and I think this is also one of the symptoms of, is it arthritis or or is it rheumatism or what, like the bones? So
muscle bone issues, yes. But their case is not as a result of the arthritis or the rheumatism. It's just because blood is not reaching where it's supposed to reach. It's reacting to that.
I always ask, if blood is not reaching, don't they remove all the blood and pump in new blood, or you keep giving them blood? I don't know. I've just been thinking out loud on some of these things. Or if blood is not, yeah, you put the blood on the knee. You can. Why should the blood always pass through the hands?
So the issue is that
I'm just asking a layman's question.
So in our body, we have a circulatory system. That's the circulatory system is just the heart pumping and blood moving through vessels to reach every part of our body. So there's an elaborate. It's just like a water system. So we have Dallon that pumps water. That's the heart. It pumps it through pipes and it reaches your house. So the pipes are the blood vessels. The water is the blood. That's how it works. So if you put the blood in the vessel here, it will still flow to every part of the body. The problem is not the blood. The problem is that the blood vessel that probably would reach the leg has been blocked. So even if you put the blood, it is not reaching there because some cell that should have passed through went to block it. So the blood is there in the system. It's not reaching there. And because the blood vessels are so many, it's an elaborate network throughout our body. We can't say we are going to check every blood vessel. There are thousands of them. You can't be checking into this. And it's the smaller ones that have the problem. It's not the big ones.
The very
the big
tiny
ones are
ones.
big enough that the blood cell will not get locked. But it's the tiny ones, when it becomes so small that it has to meander its way because of its shape, it gets locked and it causes a blockage. So with anemia, we treat it with blood transfusions. If the blood levels are low, we give blood. But when
The
the
pain.
blood vessels are blocked and it's causing that pain, we can give pain medications. But of course, pain medications momentarily relieve your pain. But if the cause, which is the blockage, is not removed, then the pain will still continue. So we give them a lot of fluids too. So people with sickle cell, when they come to the hospital, we are putting a lot of drips on them. The whole idea is that when there's more water, the water can go and flush and move those blood vessels that were locked. You can put plenty water to flush it off. That's the whole logic of it. And it sometimes relieves them of their pain. Yes. So there are so many complications that can come out from sickle cell. We even have acute chest syndrome where they have issues with their chest, they have chest pain, difficulty breathing, they cough. When you do an x-ray, you see an abnormal lung and things like that. They could have stroke. Stroke is not too common, but they could have stroke. Their blood vessels that supply the brain, if those ones are also blocked, they could lead to stroke. They could have, interesting one, what we call priapism. Priapism is prolonged erection that lasts more than 30 minutes.
Ooh.
Because it's blood that goes there to keep it erect. Now, if that blood vessel is also clogged, blood goes there, it can't flow out again because it has been blocked.
Wow.
And it stays there for a long time. So there are many complications, so many complications that can occur from sickle cell. In terms of presentation also, there are what we call small for age. So you see someone who has sickle cell who is 30 years, but he looks like a 21-year-old. They don't grow to match their age, so to say. You see someone who has sickle cell who is 19 years and he looks like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. They are small for their age. So what you expect maybe a 24-year-old to look like, they are smaller than that. So that's one way you can also see sickle cell people. They are not as big and strong as the rest of
Mostly
the
they are a bit
population.
slim and it's like they are
They are smaller.
malnourished.
Yeah, kind of. They look slim, so to say, and they are smaller for their age. So yeah, mostly these are some of the common symptoms we have. There are many more, but common these are the ones we have.
How can it be managed? Like, does it have any cure? Does it have any treatment? Does it have any management? What does it really have? I don't know how to put it, because if one is going through all these things, even sometimes normal headache, normal abdominal pains, normally look at how we are even struggling, we can't sit, we can't, and you want to have all these things in your body. How can sickle cell be managed?
So
Especially focusing on children.
okay. So first off, we talk about prevention, which we have discussed earlier. We even have to prevent it from happening in the first place. So then, once you know your genotype and you know that of your partner, you can avoid having relationships that can result in having a child with sickle cell. So first, prevention is key. That's why it's important for all of us to get tested so that we know how to go about our business without bringing a child into the world with sickle cell. Now, in the event that it happens and there's someone with sickle cell, there are certain circumstances we call triggers. It's not all the time they have a crisis. So what usually triggers their crisis, one has to do with dehydration, when they don't have a lot of fluids in their system. So we encourage that they drink lots of water. So usually for our patients who are on sickle cell, I always advise that everywhere have your big bottle of water.
Drink a lot.
Even if you are not thirsty, set an alarm. Every 1 hour, it blows for you to drink water. Just take 1 or 2 sips and continue. So we encourage them to take lots of fluids to prevent that dehydration that can tip them into a crisis. Also, extremes of weathers, when the weather is too hot or too cold, can also tip them into a crisis. So of course, they should try and prevent those situations. If the weather is too cold, you cover yourself just nice. You avoid going out. If the weather is too hot, you find a cool place to be and things like that. Physical exertion, like exercise, can also cause a crisis because yes, when
sickle cell patients cannot exercise.
When we say physical exertion, not necessarily exercise, but anything that causes your body to demand a lot of oxygen. So if you run too much and your body requires lots of oxygen for the muscles to work, and now you put pressure on your red blood cells.
It's more complicated than I thought.
Yes. So unfortunately, children with sickle cell, although they can play, but they play within limits. You can't have a child with sickle cell who wants to play football all the time, because that physical
to play and pay here and there.
Take them into a crisis. So physical exertion is also one. Infection is another trigger. So usually we try as much as possible to prevent infection. So we don't want them to get malaria. We don't want them to get any pneumonia. or any form of infection, because that infection can also take them into a crisis. So once a patient has sickle cell, we educate them on all these and teach them how to avoid these situations so that they minimize their crisis as much as possible. In the event that all this do not work and the patient has a crisis and they come to the hospital, what we usually do, like I explained earlier, is first we manage their pain, because most of them will present with severe pain. The pain is so severe. It's not our headache kind of pain. This is really severe pain. So we create their level of pain and we know the type of analgesia to give them. We're giving them paracetamol or some opiates or whatever. We know the kind of pain medications we give them to manage their pain. We also do what we call hyperhydration, like the drip. If normally you would get some 1 or 2 drips, they will be getting about 6, 4, 6. The whole idea is to put a lot of fluids to push and flush out those places that are blocked. Another thing is that we may put them on oxygen, like I said, it can affect the chest and the breathing. So when their oxygen levels are going down, we put them on oxygen also. We put them on antibiotics. Antibiotics are medications we use to treat infection or prevent infection. So since infection can be a trigger, we screen them for any form of infection. So we do some labs to see if there's any form of infection. Wherever the infection is coming from, then we treat as appropriate. So we do urine tests, we test their blood, we check their chest to see if there's any infection. We check for malaria and we treat accordingly.
Okay.
Yes, so mostly these are the things we do for our patients when they come. And also, like I said, since they can have low blood levels, we also check their blood level. If there's a need to transfuse them, we do. If there's a need to give them medications to help the body build up more blood cells, we do. So basically, this is the simple principle that we use. Sometimes it goes detailed than that, depending on the patient. We customize it for each patient. We go detailed. There are newer drugs that we can use that are being introduced. And also, there's a new field that science is venturing into, which has to do with bone marrow transplant. Because
that's what, taking someone's bone to put in your
bone marrow. So in our bone, inside the bone, there's some substance that when you're eating chicken.
Yes.
That's what we call it.
We also have it.
We all have it.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we call the marrow. So that is what produces the blood cells.
Okay.
Yes. So even though they are in the bones, they produce the blood cells.
Okay.
The vessels and all. So science is now venturing into a new field where they are considering if it's possible. Because, like I said, it is the blueprint that has the problem. So if you even take out all the person's blood, the sickle blood, and you put in fresh blood that are not sickle shaped, those ones will die. Like I said, after three months, they'll die off, and the body will produce. But now that producing mechanism, that copying mechanism where the body will be photocopying, there's a problem with that one. That original copy.
Okay.
So anytime the body produces, it will produce a wrong.
Okay.
Will produce one with an abnormal gene.
Okay.
So they are considering, is it possible that we can take out the bone marrow, which is the plan, which is the original paper which we are photocopying. If we can take it out and put in another bone marrow that has. So they've tried it a number of times.
And it has worked.
It has shown to give good results in some cases. There are improvements, and also it's still a field that science is venturing into, and we are hoping
science
it will be available
for everybody to I want us to go for a break. We'll be back with more. Welcome back. We're still looking at sickle cell and how all of us can play a role in reducing it. That is by not getting married when we know that our partner and us are carrying or carriers of sickle cell. I want us to look at gender perspective on sickle cell. Are women more at risk? Let's say if a woman has sickle cell, what are the more risk than the man? You understand what I mean?
So, from getting sickle cell, like I said, it happens at the early stages of life. At that point, there's no respect of gender, whether male, female. Like I said, this has to do with a gene on the hemoglobin in our red blood cells. Sex also has its different genes, so everybody is combining differently. So regardless, It's no respect of gender or sex. Let me put it that way. But then, in reality, women tend to, in fact, both people tend to suffer from the effects of sickle cell because then, in our society, men, so to say, do more of physically involving work. And since I explained that physical exertion can be a trigger, based on the physical work they do, they tend to also have some appreciable level of crisis. But however, in my opinion, I would say that women do experience more the devastating effects because of childbirth. You know, the whole pregnancy, 9 months and all, it's a whole event. It's really a physical event. It's a whole stage and process in life. So women who have sickle cell disease and they get pregnant, we determine that as a high risk pregnancy. So they need special attention. Their antenatal visits will be much more regular than the others. They need more tests, they need more medications, and the birth process in itself is physically involving. So mostly women at that point in their lives face the devastating effects of sickle cell more. So it's when you have a pregnant woman who has sickle cell, it's like the whole team is on hyper alert because this is a high risk case. So usually, like I said, if everyone's ANC will be scheduled every 4 weeks, hers will be scheduled every 2 weeks. She will do more labs than everyone else. She will take more medications than everyone else. Most of the time, we don't even allow them to deliver vaginally because, like I said, it's a very physically involving process. We just schedule them for
CS.
We take them to the theater, then we do the operation nice for them. So those people, we usually advise that if you have one baby, you're able to successfully go through that stress once, and you are able to successfully go through it twice, you should be advising yourself because you are just getting lucky, and you may not be lucky the next time. Because we've had a number of instances that people with sickle cell, when they come in for their fourth baby, unfortunately, they are not able to go home.
Wow. After having men, don't force your wife to have more than 2 or 3 babies.
Well,
You the
can
men.
put it that way. Don't force yourself to have
So,
3 or more.
sometimes it's not
kids
the
when you have
woman. Yeah.
sickle cell, there are certain points that you just have to say it's okay here. Let me get a family planning method. Stay alive because you are also, in
Stay
as much as
alive.
we want children, you are also very important to us. And we
That's
need you
true.
alive.
That's
So
true.
in terms of the gender perspective, both of them face the devastating effects, but then the whole process of childbirth and childbearing makes it much more complicated and difficult for women.
Give us your final word. Everything on sickle cell that I probably haven't asked. Anything that you think that our viewers need to know. Anything. Final conclusions on the topic.
So sickle cell is a very interesting topic. Interesting because of how it manifests through the genetics of it and the fact that it is not acquired by our everyday living, but it happens right from the early stages of life. It's very important for everybody to know his sickling status, his or her sickling status. Everybody. You don't have to be sick before. You don't have to wait till it's time for marriage that you have to check it. You can check it today. In any hospital, any good laboratory, you can go there and run the test and know your sickling status. And that helps you to prevent bringing people into the world who have sickle cell. For people who may have sickle cell disease also, we just want to encourage you that we understand the pain and we understand your situation. We encourage you to, as much as possible, avoid the triggers that may result in putting you into a crisis. Also seek medical care when you notice any danger sign. When there's anything unusual with you, don't try self-medicating or trying unorthodox means. As much as possible, try to seek help from the hospital. There are patients with sickle cell who have lived a near normal life, have lived as long as they would want to live because they are adhering to some of the advice, the medications, and the lifestyle changes. So it's important for everyone to know their sickling status. Don't take the risk. I know it's nice when you are going to a relationship and you are all emotional and you keep talking about the butterflies. And sometimes you just have to put emotion aside and be logical about it. Most of the time, people take that risk. I'm AS, she's AS. We would pray to God and we'll get an AA or we'll get an AS. Prayer is powerful, but I keep saying hope is not a plan. You can hope that it will happen, but that is not a plan you can work with. What if it doesn't happen? Then you have a child that is going through so much pain. And like I said, it trickles down to the parent, the caregivers, because then you would have to be in hospital almost every 2 weeks.
Every day.
You're in the hospital with your child. you are paying so many medical bills. You have to stand that emotional trauma of seeing your child who is always sad and always
Okay.
crying.
Some even become angry at their parents.
That
Like,
if
why?
they know,
Yeah,
that if
okay.
they know, some very little ones don't even know.
Know what
There
they
was this doctor who shared his story that the child had sickle cell and was in the consulting room with the parents, and the child turned and asked the parent that if I die now, will all this pain stop? Because like what he's going through, if he dies, will the pain stop? And there was dead silence in the room. You don't want to put your child through that.
Wow.
Just try and prevent it. And I think it's quite easy to do. Once you know your sickling status, you don't even have to wait to fall in love before
I
you
keep
back out,
saying,
because then
yeah.
it becomes more difficult.
Very
And
difficult.
on the first date, it's not always the time to ask what's your favorite color and what's your favorite. Sometimes you can just slip.
You want to eat the shawarma and stuff, and there's a way you can go about it. I was telling a friend some few days ago that, and he was like, he's actually living a relationship because he's AS and his girlfriend is AS, and I was telling him that sometimes you don't just have to go straight away and ask what is your genotype or your sickling status. You can just start say, oh, me, I don't eat this meat, because I'm told that people with certain genotypes don't eat certain things. You can say, oh, me, I don't eat this much often because of my blood group or my genotype. You can start with that kind of conversation, and you can ask the person, so what is yours? Then that becomes, but ask, make you know more.
So in conclusion, know your status.
Know your status.
Know your status, and don't let any child suffer the devastating effects of sickle cell.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming, Doctor. We really appreciate it. I have been speaking with Dr. Norbert Hippo, helping us to understand everything sickle cell and how we as well can help prevent all the over 300,000 people globally, right, who are born out of sickle cell every single year. And it's really disheartening. So please, don't forget this episode. Share with friends and family to watch this. I'll be back with thoughts. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Thoughts from Martha and Spice. Today I want to talk to you about loving yourself. A lot of us say, oh, I love myself. We want to buy ourselves the nice clothes, the nice shoes, the nice hair. We want to look good all the time, but we forget about our health and we put our future children at risk. We just had the conversation about sickle cell, and this is not the first time most of you watching me today might have heard about sickle cell. But for those who haven't checked, take a deep breath, relax, and take a deep breath. Ask yourself why you haven't checked your genotype or your sickling status. Are you sure you actually love yourself? You haven't checked. You have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend. You are probably planning on getting married. You love the person so much. What happens if 2-3 months to your marriage, you find out that you are AS and he or she is AS? Why don't you prevent some of these situations now? Sometimes even some health professionals, doctors, nurses themselves do not even know their genotypes. How do we advocate for other people to do so? I beg you, I cannot continually hear people from where I sit as a mentor to young people, as a friend, or someone that people look up to every day, day in, day out. I hear people talk about they falling out of love just because their partners are not, compatible with them. Some are even lucky to know it 2 or 3 months into the relationship. Some just when they are about to go and pay the bride price. And that is even because the church demands that you need to check. Then they come crying, I'm in love, I can't break up. Some would even say, oh, let's get married and not have children. You have forgotten you are in Africa. You have forgotten you are in Ghana. You have forgotten you are in Northern region. In the next 3 months after your marriage, everybody's looking at your tummy, whether you are pregnant. So please, my plea to you today, go and get checked. Go and get checked. You need to stay healthy for yourself and don't let your kids come into this world to suffer. I believe this episode and this thoughts would have changed your mindset, would have inspired you and made you a better person. Thank you for watching this episode and the and today's episode on Thoughts from Martha Inspires. Have a good night.